Hey, this is Christian Buckley, and this is the first official, the inaugural Microsoft Buzz Chat. And so I've got Steve Nguyen with me from Microsoft. Steve, how's it going?
I'm doing great. I'm honored to be the first Microsoft Buzz Chat. Thank you for inviting me.
You're the guinea pig, so everything that can go wrong will go wrong in this first one. But
we're all about experimentation here,
exactly, right? It's an iterative process. We'll learn, and then we'll look back and laugh about the one that we did with Steve. Do you remember when Steve did that? Yeah. Yeah, so I think though it's consistent about these, whether I'm interviewing MVPs or now Microsoft folks, is just to get to know people out there in the community and how they can get in contact with you and learn more about what you're doing. So why don't you start off by introducing yourself, kind of the long version?
Sure, I'll try to keep it somewhat short, but yeah, so I'm a product evangelist with the Yammer team. I've been with the Yammer team since before the acquisition. I joined Yammer before the acquisition as a customer success manager. And in my, just in general in my career, I've always had a passion around helping people be more productive with technology, helping people be more effective. And Yammer just offered me a great platform to help people communicate in new ways, help people collaborate in different ways. And I've always just been really passionate about the transformative ways we've seen people be able to connect and share information. And that's what kind of gets me excited and gets me passionate about the work that I do.
So did you move up, were you in the Bay Area prior to acquisition?
I'm based in Minneapolis, so you can see kind of the greenery here behind me. But so I'm based in Minneapolis. I've always been based here. Previous to joining Yammer, I used to work at a company called Cargill. If any of you have ever heard of Cargill, large global food manufacturing company. Mm-hmm. And as part of my time there, I worked in kind of the emerging technology space for a bit. I spent some time in leading the technology and our learning and development group there. But then also, that was kind of my first exposure to Yammer and helping to introduce enterprise social into an organization like Cargill. And that's kind of where I got my foot in the door with Yammer.
And I know that Cargill has one or two MVPs, and I know that it has been kind of a case study and deployment on for Yammer and different people talking about and sharing experiences. In fact, I think wasn't there a Cargill use case or scenarios shared at Ignite in this last year?
Yeah, Melanie Hohertz is one of our Microsoft MVPs, Yammer MVPs, and she's been just a phenomenal leader at Cargill and a phenomenal leader in the enterprise social space in general. So it's been great watching the progression of Cargill, not just with Yammer, but also with kind of their journey with Office 365. And Melanie's just been a great advocate since over the years. She did back in, what was it? I think it was SharePoint Conference 2014. She did one of what I think is kind of one of the seminary Yammer presentations from a customer perspective ever. It was just one of the best presentations that I still reference people to. It was really awesome.
Was that the superhero related one?
No, that was this year actually.
Oh,
yeah, she and Simon Denton did a kind of a Teams and Yammer Better Together story, and they dressed up as superheroes for that one. Too bad we couldn't get that one actually on video.
Well, that actually brings up a good point. So my most recent MVP interview was with Kevin Crossman. And we talked about he had written more recently an article that was the Yammer, not versus Teams, but it's part of the ongoing which tool do I use when series that is evolved over the years as people try to understand, because it's not versus the tools, and it's very much like, well, here's the scenarios where one where it fits and may be the right solution for you versus the other. So when you talk to customers about that, you're evangelizing them from the Yammer perspective. So how do you explain to customers of when to use Yammer, when to use Teams?
Yeah, for me, it's certainly an and situation. It's you mentioned the superhero presentation that Melanie and Simon and Sarah from Cargill also did at Ignite, and one of the things that that Melanie talks about in that session is that it's really all about the audience. And when you think about what she says, it's about who's in the room. And if you think about what Teams is, and even if you think about what email is to a large degree, is you kind of know exactly who you're addressing, right? You know, there's a requirement around addressability. I know that Christian and whoever are going to be in that team, or I know Christian and whoever are addressed on that email. But the real benefit that Yammer provides is that you don't always know who has the information that you need. You don't always know who's going to have the answer to the question that you have. So Yammer allows companies to kind of know what it knows when the person on this side of it maybe doesn't know who is going to know, right? So that there's also personal analogies that I use. I think of Teams as being that perhaps generally smaller place, smaller group of people that I interact with on a very frequent basis. But oftentimes I need to break out, and I need diversity of thought, I need diversity of ideas, and I need to get out of that team of people that I work with, get to a broader place, whether that's some other department in the organization, some other function, some other expertise in the organization.
Yeah, there's so I did a session. I was just returned yesterday from New Zealand, from Auckland, and the Digital Workplace Conference for New Zealand. And one of the sessions that I did was leveraging SharePoint through Teams, or better leveraging SharePoint through Teams. But I make the same point. I share the slide, which most people have seen now, the inner loop, outer loop, and went through a section of that presentation and talked about why when you look at every problem, if you've got a solution that's your hammer, every problem looks like a nail. And we saw that certainly with SharePoint, where we've tried to use SharePoint to solve every problem. But you can make the same mistake with every technology that's out there. And building out an intranet or formal extranet is the right answer sometimes, not all the time. Building out a Yammer community is the right thing some of the times, not all the time. And Teams, and so it's to understand that. I mean, certainly it's a much more complex thing than that. That's looking from the technology standpoint. And there are issues if your organization has needs like most, if not all organizations have in each of those different scenarios, is then how do you keep all of that organized? That's really what people are talking about.
But I also think people want the freedom to be able to communicate in the medium or channel that makes sense to them, or what they're trying to accomplish.
Actually I was looking back and just like, don't pay attention to me behind here, but actually a book I was going to pull out, and it's right here. So this one, to your other point, and I've talked about this for years. I mean, it's a fairly easy read, but I really like it. The Social Organization. I don't know, Steve, if you've read this one, but to your point of knowing the audience, I'll do this. The formal sponsor of today's session.
Yeah, you'll put a link in the show notes to buy it.
Right, of course, and using my discount code now. No, but one of the points that authors make is that there's really kind of three components to successful collaboration, no matter what the technology is one, to understand what is the community that you're trying to reach. I mean, that's to your point. If it's sometimes the community is your entire company. We want everyone to be part of this community. Then you might have a sub-community of the business unit that you're in, or the team of you as the manager and your 5 direct reports, or it might even be a project with you and 1 or 2 other people. Each of those is a community and has a different scope. The second point is that you need to know then the social mechanisms of that community. And social doesn't mean social networking, that kind of thing. It could be those technologies, but it's to understand what are the right mechanisms for communication. And then the third and final thing is you have to have that purpose. Like, what are we here for? What are we trying to accomplish? So when you're clear on the community, you're clear on the right mechanisms for communicating, because some of those are cultural, some of them are just, for efficiency, we need to, use the tools. And the third is what's our purpose? What's our goal? And you go and if you try to apply one technology, whether it be SharePoint or Yammer or anything, and it's not going to be the right fit at one or more of those, and so that's what you need to go and look and do, and before you even talk technology. But that's kind of the point of the book. So sorry,
so you mentioned community, and you did a collab talk recently on this topic of community. And I'm curious your perspective on what's the role of community in the future of work.
Well, again, depending on the scope of that community, because I think there were some valid points that, and we were talking about the tweet jam that we did this last month, and we were talking about community management. And so you go to Collab Talk, to my blog at Buckley Planet, and search on the tweet jams, and that was the April 2018 tweet jam that we did the topic. Yeah. And Mark Rackley made some points and says, hey, you don't need to have community managers. There's a lot of things that happen in community. My argument was that you may not have somebody who is like the owner of the community, the creator of it. It may rise within that, but naturally there are community managers, community leaders that rise up that help. It could be very much in the forefront. It could be in the background of that. But community is an important aspect of getting collaborative work done. It's essential. 15 years ago, I'm trying to think, longer than that. Wow, scary. 20 years ago, 98, 99, 2000, that time frame. And I used to talk a lot about, tapping into the collective unconscious of your organization. That's what I was talking about, was getting into that. If you're going to innovate, like I could come up with some brilliant ideas. You and I share my ideas. A lot of innovation is built off of the ideas of others, and we help each other. So it's not just the addition of two people's brains. It's then exponentially we can do more by building off of each other's ideas, vetting each other's ideas. That's what community does inside of an enterprise.
Yeah, and we talk a lot recently about teamwork, and obviously very, very important. Because none of us really succeed on our own anymore within our companies, right? We don't do projects alone. And, even about that more broadly, if you've read the book Team of Teams, I kind of think as like pulling communities of teams together, right? And that, to me, I don't think that's a notion that a lot of organizations have really pinned down, and really done a really good job with. At least not that scale. I think at least there's still a lot of opportunity for companies to think about the role of community and supporting their employees.
Well, the hard thing is that you have a lot of organizations, and Microsoft, the old way, the old culture, when I was there a decade ago was very much like this. No matter how much they talked about collaboration and teamwork, the system was set up to reward the individual contributor. And so for people to go off on their own and kind of be these heroes, create these solutions or solve the problem for the team, versus this collaborative effort. And I'll say it's because sometimes it's harder to do it with, like, I could shut the door, just work on a document, get something done, and just finish that. But again, it would be the result of like my ideas of me alone, the information that I pull in there, versus as we do this as a collaborative. It takes skill, it takes practice to be able to do that well.
So you mentioned closing the door and focusing. So let's maybe shift topics a little bit. One of the things I geeking out with people about, especially people like you, is how are you productive? What are some of the things that you do to be, or what are some of your latest things that you do in order to be individually productive?
Well, I mean, one of the things that I do, and I'm having fun with this behind me too. Nice. It's refreshing something on its own. I didn't authorize anything. Nice. Anyway, that's a different discussion. But some of the things that I do, like I have for many, many years have been an extensive OneNote user. And so capturing thoughts, capturing ideas. Wherever I travel, I have like a spiral notepad. So even if I don't have something with me, I've got, a pad and pen, and make sure I capture ideas, things to do, tasks and ideas. I read a lot of magazines, will write in the margins, tear it out, mark it up, go down, enter things in. They'll eventually find their way into that OneNote, and then share those things out. It's too much like I'm pushing the book there. But share out that those bits of information, or even as I'm thinking about it, hey, this would be fantastic. Steve needs to know about this. And then as soon as I get back, hey, Steve, came across this article. Here's a link to it. Here was my thoughts on this. And it may not even be fully formed, but to try and put it in context, why I think it's a value to you, and push that across to you. But so that's something where I
into a single place. It sounds like you
right. Well, I will. Yeah, I use, like I said, I use OneNote, and then one of the things that I do now is so I kind of, my tools of my trade are for a small business owner, I do just about everything inside of Teams, and there's SharePoint that's behind that, but I don't have a formal intranet. A company of 5 people, I don't need to have a formal intranet. But I then use Yammer for external groups, and then email and that shared calendar, which is all on Office 365. And so a lot of the OneNotes I have, so I have my desktop version, or the same version that's on my laptop when I travel, that then has one view into the OneNote notepads inside each of those different teams and project areas. So it is all this centralized one place for all that information. Yeah. And then the folks that need to get to that are members of that team, a member of that, OneDrive account, have access to that, can get to it through those respective channels.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I find myself bouncing back and forth between the digital and the analog, and I oftentimes feel like I need to refresh my processes. And sometimes I get kind of bored with the digital and need to kind of refresh myself with the analog and the pen and pad. And, I do the bullet journaling technique, if you're familiar with that. So I've been, I'll send you some. I'm probably the same. You gotta pause and refocus and iterate and figure out like what in your process is working to make sure. Sometimes the old methods just fail and you ignore them. And you just, you don't get. I don't feel like I get the same productivity out of the same process that I've been doing for a certain period of time.
No, and that's why one of the reasons I like having a digital format of things is you've got your priorities. And look, I'm a big fan of like Kanban list management, that kind of thing, because dragging and dropping things around, because your priorities could change daily or even multiple times in a day, depending on what's happening around a project or initiative and what needs to be done. And so you have to be like, I used to say, as a project manager, I would always say, like, look, I'm moving forward on the plan of record until we decide, and that the changes need to happen there. And you fought hard around decisions, but once a decision was made, go and execute on that. It's now the new plan of record, and you just have to be flexible. I think that's part of what makes community collaborative work successful. Is this willingness, the ability to be flexible about those priorities and changes and roll with those changes.
Well, I think so. What I think is interesting about that is that it's interesting to consider our individual productivity habits, and then how do we blend those in a team structure. So when we start working, in its team, what happens if my individual productivity habits interfere or are different than yours? Those are things I find interesting in helping teams think about coming together around their productivity habits, reconciling their productivity habits together, so that they can be effective as a team.
Well, I mean, that's a great point, because different people, different styles. There are some people that are the most effective, efficient, and love email, and that's how they work. And it's Well, let me ask you this: have you ever done? You've been with Microsoft long enough. Have you ever done like the insights training or the
Yeah, we were just talking about that this week, actually. Yeah.
Do you have your colored bricks? Can are we able to see
I don't
that?
have my bricks. I don't have my bricks on me. I've been doing this practice of minimalization recently, where I've been purging a lot of stuff.
I thought I had mine up on the shelf that I could. I don't see them up there, but
I actually honestly don't even remember what my colors are, what my top color is. Yellow is like relationship.
it's the collaborative. Yeah,
I think I'm like yellowish green.
yeah. So it was yellow is the collaboration, green is that like people, the support, that side of things, supportive. Blue is the data, and red is the driver, the go, take action.
I think I'm yellow green.
Yeah, I am a almost equal yellow red, but I was 82 yellow, 78 red, and then green, then blue.
Yeah.
I'm not the data guy. I'm not. I'm very much of the. It's like the collaborative guys. Like we'll hire that guy. We'll outsource it. But it's interesting. But that the whether or not you buy into the model, I actually it's based on the what is it the analysis tools around that. Anyway, it goes back to kind of the psychology behind that and the different personality, the styles. And if you go through any of that kind of leadership training, it's not so much about. I mean, it's one thing to understand your personality traits, what you lead with, your preferences, your style, those kinds of things. But what's more interesting is when you start to understand how your dominant traits collaborate best with the other traits, the other personality styles, and what works more effectively. And getting that kind of training, and that's why it's always useful to do something like that with your team. So then if you see like, here are my peers, and you start even to understand, hey, this is why I struggle with that person. We're like on the opposite sides of the wheel here. And the most effective, and then you say, yeah, where I've had good interactions with that person is because we use this style. We did this thing. So I don't know if you guys went through that extent with your team, if you've ever done that kind of leadership development. But I mean, there's so much of that pertains to just collaboration in general.
You're going to get kids
Hello.
Coming home from school. Say hi.
Hi.
Hello.
We're recording. We haven't. I haven't gone extensively into that level of training. We actually were going through some leadership training, so to speak, last week. The Yammer leadership team we were meeting this week, and we met together as a group to kind of talk about like leadership principles, all around things like clarity, energy, focus, those sorts of things. There's still lots more to dig into in those areas for us, but definitely as a leadership team from a Yammer perspective, we're having a lot of those this week. A lot of it, I believe, to me, one of the biggest leadership is around safety and creating safety for employees and an environment in which people, I think safety then builds trust. Especially, from a leadership perspective, that's true. But I think that also lends itself into community. The topic we were discussing before is you create safety, you build trust, and you comfort in people's ability to share more open.
Yeah, it's again, because if people feel safe, feel confident, then because what you have is you look at a typical organization, there's always or sitting in a meeting, of 7-10 people, there's always 2 or 3 people that are perfectly comfortable and asking questions and raising issues and all those kinds of things, and they have no problem with that kind of environment. And the issue there is that while they're the loudest, they may not know what they're talking about, may not be the right people for that feedback. And so by having, and I think this is part of the answer, like for a successful collaborative environment and being able to provide flexible solutions, different options for different styles to participate, And it might be, and that's why I think like a good manager that is having this team meeting, like doesn't just walk out of the meeting and go, well, that's it. And these are all the questions that I asked. I mean, the reality, it could be that some people, they need to then go pull into their office and have a one-on-one to get their feedback because they weren't comfortable in raising certain topics, and others will respond via email, or, and others will be more comfortable if you take a small, 2 or 3 out to lunch and have a further discussion around it. All of those things inform then that information. If you are relying on just that one meeting for 30 minutes, for an hour, sitting around the table where only 3 or 4 out of 10 were talking, you're not going to get the full, insight, benefit, knowledge, that collective unconscious of the group.
Yeah, there's been such an emphasis on diversity needed, right? But also, I think there's also been more emphasis lately on inclusion too. So obviously, there's the D&I initiative. That you can't have one. You shouldn't consider one without the other, right?
Well, even look, there's a reason why even in like you have QA teams, or you have some engineering styles where you have peer review around that, because they just learned that one person will make mistakes, and I think that no matter how good you are, how much of an expert you are, that you benefit from having the input of others. And so, creating those mechanisms and having, again, different types of mechanisms to get that feedback is why it's going to be more successful. But I mean, I do a lot of stuff in research, the Collab Talk, that's part of what we go and do, these independent research projects. And even then we have that as part of that primary research for those projects there, where there's surveys, there's focus groups, there's interviews that are happening, there's things that are named and anonymous, there are open-ended questions, there's the please let us know if there's anything else, send back information, all of that, which we then compile before doing the analysis. It's just not robust enough to send out a survey of 15, 20 questions and think there's going to be any level of accuracy around that information, no matter what it is that you're doing. You have to leave space for different styles and for different types of input.
Yeah, absolutely. I apologize. I have to wrap up.
Yeah, no worries. I know we've kind of gone over anyway here, but.
Yeah, SharePoint conference is coming up, and my next hour is in preparation for some of our sessions.
Well, awesome. Well, Steve, I mean, we'll see you down there. I don't know if I'll see you next week out at Build, but thanks a lot for your time. And how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, thanks for having me. You can reach me on Twitter at ESP, and then my last name, just how it sounds, Nguyen. So ESP, Nguyen on Twitter, or on LinkedIn. Feel free to find me on LinkedIn. Happy to connect.
Well, Steve, thanks a lot, and enjoy the weather. I guess are you even heading out are you heading over next week, or are you staying away from campus? And we'll see you.
I'll see you in Vegas.
See you in Vegas. All right. Thanks a lot. Talk to you later.
All right.